Hello, and welcome to On Purpose. Today, I'm joined by Janet Truncale, the CEO of E&Y. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be great.
Well, let me start with, you have spent 30 years at E&Y, and I believe you began as an intern. So what was it like to be an intern, and did you aspire to be a CEO when you interned there?
I get that question a lot lately, and of course not, right? When you start as an intern in a big organization, I think you're really focused on your learning, your development, finding your way around and making a good impression. And that's absolutely what I was focused on. And then over the course of time, just had great opportunities to do different things, different experiences, stretch opportunities, leadership opportunities. And also at the time, balancing a family. And years ago, that was a little bit harder to balance, and went on flexible work arrangements. So for me, it was always about finding the opportunities professionally while being able to balance personally. And then I would say, not until the last 5 years, did I look at the needs of our organization, both here, where I sit in the Americas, but then globally, and thought about my background and said, what, this could be a good fit if the opportunity arose. So again, I get that question, but clearly, not until recently.
Same for me. I wanted to be quarterback of the New York Jets, and that didn't work out for me. So
I get that.
So the other thing I've read about you is that when you're beginning in your career, you were more quiet and introverted. So talk to me about, how you sort of, got over some of your, fear of putting yourself out there. Because obviously today it would be hard for anyone to meet you and think, God, she's quiet and introverted.
Yeah, well, they say I'm an extroverted introvert. It's so funny, though, Kristen. When I first got elected, I did a similar sit down with our current chair and CEO, and they did some speed round of questionings, and it was extrovert or introvert, and I answered very quickly introvert, because that is exactly who I am. And the overwhelming response that I got from others in the organization, like from your fellow introvert, and about a third of the world's population, I think, would characterize themselves as that. And it's, it's just your preference. And for me, being in professional services, you're always out there with your clients, engaging. And it's all just about like coming back to center at the end of the day and making sure that you have some downtime and alone time. But for me, again, a little bit shy, but it's all about the preparation. And, that's what's been instilled in me, right, working at a firm for over 30 years. Whether it's for your clients, whether it's for your internal people, also having respect for folks and showing up very prepared. So for me, I'm not a wing it person. It's always about preparation, making sure that I understand what's top of mind, again, for our clients, for our people, and making sure that I show up prepared to address exactly what they're looking for. And that's really how I manage. But again, an extroverted introvert, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be more extroverted, and I think over my career I've become more introverted. But I do think your point on being prepared and also giving yourself time to recharge.
Yeah, it's what gives
critical.
you energy. And look, I always joke that our people, our clients, what gives me energy, but you also have to know that at the end of the day, you're going to need a little alone time, and you need to make sure that your friends and your family understand that about you as well to make sure that everything works out okay.
So let's talk about those colleagues. Mm-hmm. You used to lead 14,000 colleagues, which most of us would consider a very large company. I mean, about the size of Zoetis, but now you lead 400,000 colleagues. So did you have to change your leadership, or how did you evolve to be serving 400,000 people across the globe?
Yeah, well, first of all, people are always surprised that at EY globally, we are a firm of 400,000 professionals. So I think that surprises a lot of people. It even surprises some of our own folks. But I think for me, it's all been about the same. I'm very focused on the interpersonal connections with our people. For me, what's really important is building a great team around you that complements you, your backgrounds and your skills. And I think in taking on this bigger role, that has been a lot of what I've been focused on. Make sure that you have people that, again, round you out, which is really important. So different backgrounds, different skill sets, and always make sure that you have a disruptor amongst you in the group that just thinks out of the box and challenges you. So those are the same things that I brought to this role as well. But again, for me, whether I was leading a practice of 14,000 or 400,000, it's all about making sure that I'm setting up our people for success in working with our clients, working with each other, providing great opportunities for learning and development. It's just on a different scale. And so when I think about the strategy and our priorities and our investments, they're all the same thing, but it's just got to be at scale.
So one of the things I've read about you is that you're a firm believer in having a village of truth tellers.
Yeah.
So let's start with, what is a village of truth tellers, and why do we all need one?
So for me, look, at any point in your career, you need someone, to call you out. If you're going off of strategy, if if you're not listening to the people around you. And as you progress in an organization, I think it's hard. Sometimes people think that you just want folks that are going to agree with you silently or overtly agree with you. And I've always been really focused on feedback from early on in my career. Like, tell me what I'm doing well, but tell me what I need to work on. And I don't think that many organizations do that well. And I think that for me, I'm very open with my team. Give me feedback. Give me feedback in the meeting. Give me feedback after the meeting. Give me feedback on a regular basis, because we all need to learn and grow and work on different things. And if you ever think that that's not the case, there's other problems. So for me, it's about getting feedback. And then you need to make sure that you have a couple of people that are really going to be those trusted folks that are going to tell you what you're missing, what you're overlooking, but also tell you the positives as well. And so for me, it's important to set up an environment where people feel safe to do that. So when they give you that feedback, you say thank you, and you listen and you adapt. And that's hard to do, especially when you're a CEO of a company, because again, a lot of people think that you just want to be agreed with and get the head nods, and that's absolutely not the case. So for me, it's making sure that you're always getting feedback, and then at all parts of your career, making sure that you're surrounding people that are going to tell you when you've got something slightly off or wrong, or if you're not listening to the right people. And that's what's really important. And when you build your team, make sure that you have folks that are going to pull that out of the people around you and pull that out of yourself.
So what I loved your focus on is, that each of us need to continue to learn, because I would say we work in incredibly uncertain times.
Yeah.
And just, things are evolving so quickly. And you have the benefit of working with so many different CEOs and so many different companies across industries. I wonder if you might share, what do you think leaders are doing well? And what do you think certain leaders can do a better job of these days?
Yeah, gosh, there's so much I can answer that question with. The best leaders that I see are very much focused on their team, their crew, whatever you want to call it, their people. And for me, 400,000, we have a view on every single generation. And I think for the best leaders, they're really focusing on, making sure that their people are upskilled and they're ready for the future, and recognize the difference in the generational shifts. If you look at our organization, over 70% of our people are under the age of 30. That's another surprise for a lot of folks. And so they tell us a lot about what the organization needs to do to change, and whether that's a focus on well-being, which clearly is more of a focus today, learning and development. And then I would also talk about career agility. You talked about me being an intern and being here for 30 years. The next generations are going to be less patient. They're going to want to have different opportunities earlier on their career, different stretches. So where I was comfortable staying in a role for 5 or 7 years, that might be 2 at tops for the next generation. So I think focusing at the people and keeping humans at the center of our business, that would be one thing that I think leaders do well. And then in terms of adapting in this world of new technology, whether it's AI or the next generation of technology, making sure that we also keep humans at the center and are using this technology to, again, upskill, have better interactions with our consumers, our customers, and have better experiences for our people as well, and really using technology for good. Humans at the center, use it to get greater productivity, have expertise spread across a larger population. I think the democratization of expertise with the use of AI and other technology is really going to be a game changer, not only for our organizations, but for society at large. So again, those are a couple things, and then and just making sure that you're focused on your strategy and really stay focused, and you got to deal with the outside worlds and some of the geopolitics, but stay true to who you are, stay on course, and make sure you build in some resiliency into your business.
So I saw this picture of you where you're where you're on a swing talking to other leaders. So is this like a daily event over at you? Why do you guys what is that about?
So in addition to being an introvert, I'm scared of heights. No, that must have been at our Innovation Realized, and that's a program that we have every year where we bring some of our our clients off-site to really challenge their way of thinking and bring in different speakers and different experiences, again, to think out of the box. And so that was all about just looking at things from a different perspective. I remember, we were up and swinging it, several feet up in the air, but that was just a little bit of fun. But that's, again,
well, it's nice to bring some fun into challenging yourself.
You do need it, but again, just seeing things from a different perspective and really challenging ourselves and our clients to think out of the box about their business.
So in 2024, as part of a new CEO, you rolled out a new strategy for the company. Tell me a little bit about why you did that and really what the change you're trying to drive at E&Y is.
Yeah, so our new strategy we rolled out called All In. It's really about galvanizing our 400,000 people across the globe, across all of our different service lines and sectors, because we really can make a difference for our clients and solve their complex challenges, and we do that best when we're together. We have one of the best strategy houses, and we have the ability to do everything all the way to execution and outsourcing. And again, I don't think a lot of people recognize that, and I do believe that we're uniquely positioned when we galvanize, all of our people together to serve our clients. So that's really what it's all about. And then really being specific about what are the areas that we're going to differentially invest in for the future to make sure that we're future fit. And then also, how do we simplify our business to make it easier for our 400,000 people to serve clients, which is what they want to be doing every single day. So we launched it, when I took over, and I feel very fortunate that through my transition, I was able to build my own team, set a new strategy, get the perspectives of so many different people to really be able to launch that when I took over on July 1. And I've been saying to everybody, it's more than a strategy. It's a bit of a rallying cry for us. Yeah. And I think in this moment, you talked about a time of uncertainty, but for our business, I think it was a really great time to pull everybody together, united, and moving forward together as one.
So you've obviously launched a new strategy, taken the world by storm. But one of the things that people often remind me of is, Janet's the first woman CEO of a Big Four firm. What does that make you feel like? I mean, I remember that when I became CEO 5 years ago, you're the first woman CEO of an animal health. What's your reaction when people say that to you?
So that's an interesting question. So a couple years ago, when I took over for our America's Financial Services organization, I was the first woman. And I remember being on a webcast with many of our partners. And I really kind of downplayed that. And a lot of very strong women in my practice at the time said, you know what, Janet, we need you to embrace that. It's not about you, it's about us and the next generation, about seeing that it's possible. And so when the news came out about a year ago about my election, I remember the headlines really talked about first woman to lead a Big Four. And my first reaction is, oh, why does it say that? But again, I remembered I had those women's voices in my ear again. It's not about me, right? It's about making sure that the next generation, the young kids that are starting their careers, and then our daughters, frankly, to recognize that it is possible. And so for me, now I'm learning to embrace it, although it's a little bit uncomfortable for sure. But it's about the next generation. And I'll tell you a story. Just recently, I was out at dinner with some of our colleagues, and one of them had brought their daughter along, and she came up to me and she goes, you know what, Janet, it's so great to meet you, because now I know one day I can be a CEO. So those are good reminders of why we have to embrace the headlines and not back away from them.
So one of the things about being the first is it also means you're normally the only woman often in rooms. And I think one of the things that a lot of younger women struggle with as they're moving up in their career is like, how am I going to be the only woman? How am I going to come across? So maybe share a little of your thoughts when you walk into many rooms, I'm sure, where you're the only woman in it. Like, how does that make you feel? And how do you make sure you're at your best when you're not, surrounded necessarily in the most comfortable setting?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's been the story my entire career. I remember I grew up in the audit business, and I would be one of 15. I was always usually the only woman in a boardroom, back in the early 90s. And I think it's important to recognize that you're there for a reason, right? Whether it was 30 years ago or whether it's today, you have something to say. Your background and your expertise gives you a seat at the table, and you have to remind yourself that that's the case. So I think that's the most important. And then also, I think it's important for us as women that are often, one in the room, and as the CEOs of companies, there's far fewer of us than there hopefully will be in the next 5 or 10 years. It's also about bringing people along as well. I think that's important too. often I had sponsors and mentors that recognized, kind of my skill set and really brought me along. And I think that's important too. So make sure that, the next meeting, you're not the only one. Bring somebody along, sponsor, mentor others as well, just like we've had that for us. But again, remember, you deserve to be there. You have something to say. I think that's really important. And that's not just for women, it's for men as well.
Yes, especially when you're in your first time in anything. But I think your desire to bring people along is obviously evident also in where you spend your time. I know you're involved in Women's World Banking with UNICEF. Talk to me about what inspired you to get involved there and what that means to you.
Yeah, so for me, it was interesting. I had my 3 children were grown and leaving the house, and you always at that juncture, you say, I can just dive completely back into work and spend all my time at work, or I can be doing something for good. And for me, it was time to get involved in nonprofits. And so for me, you work with these organizations, it's really raising up women and providing a better world for children, right? 2 things that are near and dear to my heart. And then when I look at gender equity and financial literacy, that all ties together. And so for me, it's about giving back. And it's also an opportunity to grow. So for me, I sat on one side of the table of boardrooms all the time. And now being on a board and really using my skill set for the good, I think is great. But I go back to these organizations, what do they share in common? It's about lifting up women, lifting up children, and then in turn, when you lift up women and children, you're helping communities and societies at large. So that to me is why I'm involved in those 2 organizations. And with all the pulls at my time, I was really resolute in making sure that I could stay and work with UNICEF and with Women's World Banking, for the next several years, even with taking on a big job. You have to flex things a little bit and work your schedule a little bit differently, but it was still important for me to be able to do things outside of work and family, again, with our positions to do something good for the communities and society at large.
I do think that's a great way to role model, but I also think you've clearly done that a great job. Your company, E&Y, has been one of the best places to work for 26 years, which is just an amazing accomplishment. What do you think it is about the culture of EY and the policies, the benefits, that for 26 years straight have allowed it to earn that ranking?
So we're a people business. So first of all, thank you for recognizing that, because we're definitely very proud of that. But we're a people business, and I used to joke that people walk out of our offices every single day, and we want them to come back. Now, because we're hybrid, people shut down their computers at the end of the day. We want to make sure that they open those computers back up in the next day. But we're a people organization, and so that's what we really have to be focusing on. And like I said, the generations tell us what they want and what they need to succeed. And so that's, I think, what's really core to our culture is how do we continue to make sure that we are providing our people with the best experiences so they'll come and choose to work at EY and then stay and work at EY. And a part of our strategy that I mentioned earlier, All In, is a new employee value proposition. So our ambition as a firm is to shape the future with confidence, and we're using that also for our employee value proposition, that we want our professionals to shape their future with confidence. And I mentioned, career agility, that is front and center for our people. They have opportunities not just to do work abroad and in different locations, but work in different industries, sectors, and service lines. Again, there's a little bit of impatience there, and recognize that we have to do that on a more formal basis for our people, because that's what they want. And then the focus on well-being as well, I think, is always going to be something that we're focused on, and that I think the practices that we roll out at EY are leading for our profession at large.
So one of the things that fascinated me when I became CEO is the number of people who came up to me and thought I didn't have kids. Because the only way you could get to this role is if you didn't have kids or your husband didn't work.
Yeah.
So, what would be your advice to young parents today who are wondering, is it possible? How did you make it work? What would you say to them?
So first of all, I think it's important to talk about it, and that it takes a village, right? I mean, at different points in my career, I was able to do more, do less. I always joke that some years the firm got the best of me, and other times, I got the best of them. And recognizing that the balance isn't measured in every single day, every week, or every month, but you have to look at it over the long term. And recognize that you can't do everything well. So for me, it's always been getting help in the things that are not as important and critical, and make sure that you're present for the things that really matter. And for me, I'm most proud of the fact that I made sure that I made the important events in my children's lives. They knew that I was always, there for them first and foremost, and then had opportunity to continue to, develop and stretch myself in my career. part of that is the organization, I think, that allowed that to happen. I went on a formal work arrangement. I got promoted to partner on a flexible work arrangement as well. But again, I think making sure that you have a big support system was really important, and making sure that that balance, that you looked at it over the long term. And I will say that when I got this job, it was really cute. No one was more excited, than my family. And I have an opportunity now to travel a lot more than I did, when they were younger. And now, they're looking at it as this is your time, right? Your time to shine and have new experiences and everything else. And it's a job that I can do a lot more easily now that they're 21, 24, and 26 than clearly if they were younger.
Well, I think it's been clearly a great role model, but I also think it's great having a CEO like you who really champions work-life balance for all colleagues across the company so that every family can have that. So thank you so much for joining me, Janet, and thank you for joining us on Purpose. We look forward to seeing you next time.